How's everybody doing today?
Fine, amen.
Beautiful
Bless.
weather today.
Yeah.
Beautiful weather. We are continuing our sermon series where we left off last week. Really turn another page from where we left off last week. So our sermon series is Living in Gear. So I told you at the beginning, which was some weeks ago, that there were 4 primary gears that we could live our life in as we travel on this narrow road trip, which was our yearly thing. The first I told you was prayer and patience. We can always be in prayer and patience, and that's like being in park. Having the ability and courage to stop, to pray, and have patience on God. The second one, which we've been studying for a while, is faith. We've been talking about what is faith. How do we exhibit great faith? How do we exhibit faith in the midst of trials? And now we're getting into our third gear of living, which is a gear of fear. For those who walked in late, you missed how we began our service today. We started reading a scripture in 1 Samuel about a little known man. He was actually very tall. His name was Saul. And Saul, he begins his journey as just the son of a man who is lost, his sheep. And he goes out to find these sheep or these camels that his father has lost, and he begins to go on this journey, and eventually he gets to a place where he meets a great prophet named Samuel. And Samuel declares that Saul will be the next king of Israel, really their first king. And it is only by the Spirit of God that Samuel is let to know that. So, as the story goes on, we find out that Samuel eventually falls and he's replaced by David. And because of his whole ordeal with David, we normally look at Saul in very unfavorable light, right? Most of us don't even stop to really think, who was Saul? What did Saul do? Because we only think of this Saul that was so angry that he was chasing David around trying to kill David before David became king. I find that's such a pity. Because when we look only at the last part of Saul's life, we forget how good of a king he started out. Saul started out so good as a king. When he first started out, he was winning battles for God. He was dedicating things for God. He was God's man. It says in the Bible, those people who come to our Bible study will know this, that the little details, remember, of how a character is mentioned determine a lot about who he is. The little details we learn about Saul. Saul was taller, a head taller than everyone else in Israel. What does that mean? It means that he had a stature, that he was known. People looked at him and saw reassurance in him. They saw something in him of greatness. We also learned that Saul, like most leaders of Israel, was very handsome. He was a handsome guy, sort of like the guy who's preaching to you right now. He was handsome. When he walked into the room, the ladies would say, "Who is this guy?" The other thing, while all of those are great characteristics of a leader, Saul was a loyal person. Saul, he was trying to find his father's property, and he was gone so long that his father may have begun to get worried about it. And he said, "Look, let us just stop worrying about this because I want to get home before my father starts worrying about me." He was loyal to his father. He was loyal to the people that followed him. Saul started off such a good guy and a good leader. But the problem that Saul eventually had was that Saul didn't see himself the way other people see him. Matter of fact, Saul didn't even see himself the way God saw him. Because God saw something distinct about Saul that he said, "This is going to be my king." But the problem is, you can have a title over your life but never live into it because you don't see the title inside yourself. But that's what his problem was. So Saul, as he's living this life, matter of fact, when they said he was going to be king, guess where he was? He was hiding in the middle of baggage. He was trying to run away from the title. But eventually he accepted the title. So as the story tells us, he goes on to fight many battles. Matter of fact, where we're going to be reading is in 1 Samuel 15, but in 1 Samuel 14, him and his son defeat the Philistines, and they have this battle. And they get to this point in 1 Samuel 15, as we read, where God is charging Saul with cleaning up something that happened in Exodus. There was an event that happened in Exodus, where as the children of Israel were leaving their captivity in slavery, they were confronted by a group of people. The people were the Amalekites, right? And when they were approached by them and their king Amalek, they were almost totally wiped out, except God delivered the victory in their hands. But God did not forget about when the Amalekites attacked Egypt. And he said, because they have attacked Israel, and because they have attacked my people, I promise, one day I'm going to wipe out this whole group of people. Man, that's scary, right? We normally think of God as a God of love. But in this scripture in Exodus, he says, I'm going to totally wipe out the memory of this king. And what's crazy is God doesn't do it right there in Exodus. He doesn't even do it in the book that follows Exodus, which is Judges. He doesn't do it then. He waits all the way till we get to 1 Samuel chapter 15. And right here, God sees the opportunity through his anointed king Saul to wipe out the Amalekites. And when he does this, he tells Saul, he says, Saul, I want you to wipe out everybody. He says there's going to be children killed. Not children. Not children. Close his ears. I don't want me. Kill the children. There's going to be women there, Steve. Kill them. I can't allow any parts of these people to infect my people when they get to where they're going. Kill them all. The king, I want you to definitely kill him. Because he carries the blood of Amalek, who was the king before that attacked my people. I want you to totally erase them off the face of the earth. Right. This is the charge that's given to Saul. So Saul is he's anointed. He's ready to go. He loves battle. He's ready to defend God's honor in battle. And then he begins to fight. And he begins to fight everybody. Not before he dismisses the Canaanites, because he says, look, you have no part of this. You can go, but we're going to kill everybody that God told us to kill. And as they're slashing and cutting and murdering, and all of these things are being eradicated as God willed it, Saul changes his mind about one thing.
Yeah.
Sure. He says, you know what? Maybe we don't gotta kill everybody. Right. But you know what's crazy? You don't even say, let's save some kids. No, he says kill them. But let's save some oxen. Some oxen. Some sheep. Let's save the king. Why? He saves them, but then he uses this rationale. You know, sometimes when we do something bad, we like to ration why we do something. You know, I just did it because of this, or I did it because of that. But you forget that God told you to do this, so you should have did that. So he says, you know, we're going to keep these people alive so that we can make offerings to God. Won't God be pleased with our offerings? But then Samuel gets word of this. Samuel, the same one who anointed him king on behalf of God, he gets word of this. Samuel, the same person who told him, you have promise on your life, he comes down to Saul. And as he gets down to Saul, he says, Saul, what's the problem? Saul looks at him and he says, nothing, man. Everything's great. We just went to battle. We killed everybody. And then Samuel hears something. Here's the cattle of the oxen, of the sheep that were supposed to be destroyed. He hears them. And he says, what? What is this? What do I hear? And right there, pick up your Bibles and turn to Samuel, verse 15. Or chapter 15, excuse me. And right there we're going to pick up, because I don't want to mess up the words of this beautiful story.
What chapter you want to
Chapter 15, 1 Samuel 15. And we're going to pick up at verse 14. Actually 13. Our actual scripture text is coming from 17 to 26, but I want to pick up here so you can get the full picture of what's happening. In Samuel, and again this is 1 Samuel 15. It says, and Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said to him, blessed be you to the Lord. I have performed the commandment of the Lord. What was the commandment of the Lord again? Kill everybody, right? And Saul says, I performed it, I've done it. And Samuel said, what then is this bleating of the sheep in my ears, and the lowing of the oxen that I hear. Saul said, they have brought them, who did he say?
They.
He said that. He said, you know what? You told me to do something, but they did it. But then Samuel could have looked at him and said, who did I put you in charge of? Did I put you in charge of them?
That's right.
Then what they did is what? Your fault.
That's right.
He said, they have brought them from the Amalekites. For the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God. But that's not what God told you to do, son. And the rest we have devoted to destruction. We've only saved this little bit. I've only done this little bit, but I've done all the rest good. I've only done this much against what you said, God, but I've done this much according to what you said. I've only sinned this much today, Lord, but you know, I lived my whole life like this, Lord. But what God has said, did I tell you that you could do just a little bit? Or did I tell you to take it home and do it all the way? Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. Oh, I'm sorry, I done skipped the whole book.
Yeah.
Sorry, go back. What the Lord said to me this night. Let me go back. It says, then Samuel, this is verse 16, said to Saul, stop! I will tell you what the Lord said to me this night. And he said to him, speak! And Samuel said, though you are little in your own eyes, although, Saul, you've been struggling with this thing about your image and you've been seeing yourself as less than what you've been called to be, although you've been struggling with your image and you continually doubt yourself, although you've been struggling with your image and you continually doubt the calling that God has put on your life, he says, though you see yourself small in your own eyes, are you not the head of the tribes of Israel?
Right.
The Lord anointed you. That means the Lord chose you. The Lord called you out to be king over Israel. And the Lord sent you on a mission. And he said, go, devote to destruction the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are what?
Wiped out.
Wiped out, consumed. Why then did you obey the voice? Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you pounce on the spoil and do what was that saying? Evil in the sight of the Lord. If you have a mark or something, highlight that. Why did you do what was evil in the sight of the Lord? First of all, notice that nowhere did God say that leaving these people would be evil. That's important to remember. God never said that if they let some people live, that would be evil in his sight. Saul was supposed to know what was evil in the Lord's sight. So he says, why did you do what was evil? And Saul said to Samuel, and here we go, this is where we'll stop right here. He says, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord. I've gone on a mission to which the Lord sent me. I bought Agag, the king of Amalek, and I've devoted the Amalekites to destruction. But the people took of the spoil, sheep and oxen, the best things devoted to destruction, to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal. And Samuel said, here we go, Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifice? He says, I want you to think, Saul. Does the Lord delight in your sacrifices and offerings as much as he has delight in obeying the voice of the Lord? Does he want you to sacrifice all that you have, or does he ask for you to obey him? Behold, to obey is what? Better than sacrifice. And to listen than fat of rams. For the rebellion is as sin of divination, and presumption is as inequity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he what?
Rejected you.
He also rejected you. One more verse, I'm sorry. Let me get to 20. Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and your words. And I want us all to read this together. Why did he do it?
Fear the people. Obey their ways.
Exactly. Let's in whatever version you have, let's read that together. Verse 24. Let's read it, because this is where the sermon comes from. Ready? Here we go. Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned,
for I have transgressed the commandments of the Lord,
because I have
feared the people and obeyed their voice.
No. That's it right there. He did all of that. He lied to Samuel. Why? Why did he lie? Because he feared the people. He was living his life in a state of fear. He didn't do what God told him to do. Why didn't he do what God told him to do? Because he feared the people. He feared them. Saul had a fear issue all of his life. And as God kept working with him, this fear issue, this issue of fear in his life finally came to a head to where God had to do something about it. Now, fear in the Bible, we often think of this fear that we're not supposed to have. Oh, God did not give us the spirit of what?
Fear.
Fear, right? But he gave us the spirit of what? Power. We know that love rejects all types of fear, right? But here, Saul has this fear in his heart. And what God says to Saul, and what God eventually decides on, is the true reason for Saul being ejected or rejected as king was because he had a fear issue. But his issue that God took part of wasn't the fear of man that he had the real issue with. His real issue was that Saul did not have the fear of God.
Right.
Saul feared man so much that he was willing to transgress God. He feared man so much that he was willing to go against God. But what he didn't have was an honest fear of God.
That's it.
When we talk about these gears in which we're supposed to live our lives, having an honest fear of God in our lives is how we should be living when we're trying to go some places. See, having living in the gear of a fear of God, which we can find in Proverbs verses 1 through 7, also Proverbs 9 and 10. All over the Old Testament, it tells us to have a healthy fear of God. When you have a healthy fear of God, when you come across things that God is telling you not to do, you don't go ahead and do it.
That's it.
Because you fear God.
That's it.
Now, some people do not like to say fear of God. Matter of fact, I was watching Facebook one day, and this woman, she's like an atheist, something, I don't really know what she is, but she made this comment. Why do you all serve a God that tells you to fear him? She said, if your God is so loving, why would he want you to fear him? So many people, even Christians, have a problem with the Bible saying that we are supposed to fear God.
Right.
But the problem is that they misconstrue the spirit of fear and the action of fear of God, because there's two different things. No, we should not have a spirit of fear, but having a healthy fear of God is what will save us when times get hard. See, when we look at the Hebrew text of it all, if you have a pen, this is where you can really start taking notes. In Hebrew, this fear of God is as old as dirt. It's as old as the beginning of time. In Hebrew, they use 3 words to outline what fear is, and this fear of God. The first word of fear is pahad. Pahad. And what that means is literally terror from known danger. So fear is if Ben comes up and attacks me. Ben is quite taller than me, right? He comes up to attack me with a knife. Now, some people would be like, oh, that's nothing. Me, I don't have no experience hand-to-hand combat other than duking it out with my fist. So he come at me with a knife. I'm going to have a reasonable terror that is within me, right? That's in the Bible. They talk about that. That is called fear. But because it's a known danger, it's expected of me to have this fear. That's when I have to overcome my fear with what? Faith, right? Because I know that something's happening, but I have to know that something can happen in my favor. So when he comes at me, that's called pahad, terror. That is fear. The second word for fear is yara, or yara, which is anxiety or fear from the unknown. So when you are saying, at my job, I'm coming in late, my manager is going to yell at me, I have this fear. That is yara. That is actually what it's talking about when it says we do not have a spirit of fear. You should never feel anxious about anything, right? Because in everything with prayer and supplications, make your request be known to the Lord, right? And then he will give you a peace that surpasses all understanding, right? So when you come up against this yara type fear, you're always supposed to counter it with some prayer, with some belief in God. But that is not the fear that is in the fear of God. The last word for fear is yira. Yira. Everybody say yira.
Yira.
Yira. And what yira means is very interesting. The word itself means to re-inspect. Re-inspect. Does anybody know how those two words can be related? Fear and re-inspect. Why those two words would be related? Nobody? Let me show you. The word is set up in a way to where it says fear God, to yira of God, or yira of the Lord. To where if it was a dark room, and I walk into the dark room, at first, I don't see anyone in the room. I inspect the room and see that no one is in the room. If no one's in the room, and I'm by myself, that means what for me? I can do whatever I want. Nobody's watching. Nobody's watching. But then, as I turn to walk out the room, I see something. It turns out that when I thought upon my first inspection of the room that I was alone, when I re-inspected the room, I found out that someone was watching me the whole time.
Well,
That is what fear of the Lord means. It means that you are never alone.
yes.
You should always be worried that someone is watching exactly what you do. They used to call that thing the big brother or the eye in the sky, right? You gotta watch out what you're doing. That's what it means. It means God has never taken his eye.
Yes.
Listen.
That was mom in the doorway when we were kids.
Exactly. Mom in the doorway.
Yep.
She was always got an eye on you, right?
That's
Even when you
right.
didn't know. In school, they used to say teachers got eyes in what?
Back
In the back of the head, which means that they're always watching you. Now, in the Hebrew, when it says you're supposed to have a fear of the Lord, what it's saying is you should always have this anticipation that whatever you do is coming upon heavy inspection.
Yes.
So when you come up and you push somebody and you didn't think, oh, you looked around, nobody was looking, guess what? Somebody was in the room.
Right.
When you go around and you cuss people out just when it's between you and you like, man, if everybody was around me, I probably wouldn't do that, but just because it's me and you in this house, I'm going to cuss you out to the ground. Guess what? Somebody's in the room watching you. Somebody's in the room watching you. And it says that when you have this type of knowledge, of this understanding that God is always around you, you have a type of posture that you walk in.
That's it.
Which is this fear that, oh, somebody might be looking at me. Oh, let me make sure that I'm doing the right thing because God might do something to me. Or God might be looking at me. Well, so that's what it means to have a fear of the Lord. Now, when you have this fear of the Lord, you have to understand that it doesn't just help to know that someone is watching you. Because Summer can be watching me all day, but who is Summer? I'm not scared of Summer. Summer my big sister, but who is she really? She don't come to my house. Who is she really? She can't do nothing really to me. I mean, I can go out. Some of us, some of us. If a car comes behind you while you're driving and it's just a regular Ford, you just like, oh man, I was speeding, but that's just a Ford behind me. Now, what happens when you're speeding and you see a car with some lights on the top? You're like, oh, this person watching me is totally different from just anybody watching me. And the difference is when you re-inspect the room and find out that the eyes in the room are the eyes of the one who created everything, you realize that something about you has changed. Not just because he's watching you, but because he can judge you.
Yes.
Because he can judge you. And when you know that someone can judge you, you have to be very careful what you do to them.
Amen.
God says that not only do I want you to have a healthy fear of God, after most of the time when you see a fear of God in the Bible, he always follows it with, and keep my commandments. Turn to Deuteronomy 10, verse 12. Let us look at this quickly. Deuteronomy 10, verse 12. And then you can read that when she gets it. Actually, before, does everybody have that? Let's make sure everybody's on the page. Okay. Amen. Say amen if you have it.
Amen.
Amen. That's the majority. Go ahead, Ben.
And now Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you, but to fear the Lord your God?
Okay, stop. What does it say? Fear the Lord your God, right? What does that mean? It means, remember, God is watching you. Carry yourself in reverence. Carry yourself in awe of God because he's watching you. Have a fear of the Lord. But guess what? Don't just know that he's watching you. Do what? Then what does it say?
To walk in all his ways and to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes which I command you today for your good.
He says, it's good that you have this understanding that God is watching. But once you know God is watching, then do what God commands you so that everything will go right in your life.
Well,
He says, and remember in the passage where it says Saul did what? He did evil, right? He allowed all type of evil. What is evil? Do we know?
Against God.
Yes, sir.
Anything
Against God.
against God. But do you want to know something interesting? It says in Ecclesiastes, I believe. No, Proverbs 8, excuse me. It says that the fear of God,
Speaking
Wisdom.
wisdom.
it not only, but it says the fear of God is the hatred of what? Of evil. Of evil. When you have this fear of God, when you know God is watching you, you're doing His commandments, you have a hatred of what is wrong in God's eyes.
right.
When I know my mama used to tell me clean up the kitchen, right? It used to be a certain way. It wasn't a lot of times. My sister did like that. But when she did, okay, I knew that my mama wanted the kitchen cleaned a certain type of way. When I knew that she wanted it a certain type of way, I knew if it wasn't done to those specifications, although they may not be the same specifications that Valita has, if I didn't do it according to my mama's specifications, I was doing wrong.
Right.
And my mama, when she got home, was going to check to see if the counters was wiped down. It didn't matter if I did the dishes, because that's all I had to do at my daddy's house was do the dishes. But when I'm at my mama's, she said, boy, if the kitchen ain't clean unless you wipe down the counters and sweep and mop the floor. So when she get home, if it's still a little dust on the floor, I've done evil in her eyesight. Why? Because it's against what I knew she wanted me to do.
Right.
That's why when we look at the text, Saul is doing evil. He has lost a fear of God. It's like if he's taking God so cavalier that God will accept anything that he does. He forgot why he was by himself with his sheep or with his people. He forgot when he was on the battlefield. He didn't think God was looking at him, but then Samuel comes back to tell him, no, God saw everything and you didn't do it.
Well, that's it.
When we live in a fear of God, we must know who God is. We must know that God can punish us as well as love us.
Yes.
We also must know what is acceptable in His eyesight.
Right.
It's a lot of times we look at the scripture and then we judge the scripture based upon what the world says. And the thing is that you can be living in the world according to the great standards of the world, right? You're living in the world, you're prosperous, you're lying to people, but you're making a lot of money. You're doing whatever you want to, but you got a fancy car, and the world's saying you are blessed. The world's saying you're doing the right thing. You're doing the great things. You living the good life.
Well,
According to the world.
Right.
But guess what? Nobody in the world is going to judge your soul.
that's it. Amen.
Do not fear man who can only kill your body, but fear the one who can kill your body and your soul. I don't want to just be living according to what you say. I want to have a healthy fear of God, and I don't want to do this when I should do that. Because at the end of time, He's going to judge me because He was always looking at me.
That's it.
That's what living in the fear is. It means almost, in how I pronounce it in our gears of faith, it's as if you're driving. Remember, we drive in this faith mode, living in faith. But then you'll get to obstacles in life, or you'll get to situations in life. Maybe that situation where if you just by this one little time, you can get by.
Well,
But when you live in the fear of God, knowing that He's watching, you take it out of drive and you put it in reverse. And you begin to back away from a decision that you knew will affect and harm your life. And when you readjust yourself, after you backed away from the situation, if Saul, when he was going, and his people were saying, yeah, let's just let him live. He's driving full by faith. Yeah, this is a good journey. We're fighting a good battle. But the moment his people said, let's let Agag live, he should have said, whoa, let me put this in reverse.
right.
Let me put this in reverse. And once you put it in reverse, assess what God is looking at, assess what His commandments are, then you could put it in faith and drive the right way. Because what happened if he reversed right there, then he could have said, no, this is the right way to go. Let's kill this sucker right now. Because at the end of it, Saul was worried about everything that people had the opportunity to take away.
Right.
He was scared, Stephen, that his homeboys in the army, they wouldn't respect him if he killed Agag. He was scared, like real fear. That, if he killed Agag or if he killed the... He was was even scared that his men might kill him. This is real fear he's feeling. He was really scared. There's some real complications, some real implications of everything. He was scared that they would say, we don't want you as king anymore. And they would take it off from him. But the one thing, what's crazy is when you know his story, he didn't lose any of that. But he lost what was most important. He lost the anointing of God.
Right.
His life didn't end right there. He was still king. He was still fighting battles. He was still living in a palace. He still had money. But the anointing on his life was gone.
That's it.
God said, if you can't fear me, then how can I trust you? See, people will always threaten your position, but they can never take away your promise.
That's it.
See, you've been worried all this time about people threatening what you're doing.
Yes.
You've been worried about people threatening, where you live and all of this, all of that. But God said, why do you even worry about that when they can never threaten who you are?
That's it.
Because I'm already poured my anointing over you. So instead of wasting what is already on your head, why don't you just stop, fear me, and do what I tell you to do? And the beauty of it is that when you have a fear of God, it leads to this type of wisdom. When you truly fear God, it allows you to make those type of decisions split second. It allows you to say, no, I can't do this right now because I know God's watching me. I know that it's going to be consequences. Maybe not now, but tomorrow. I can't do it. That is what God calls wisdom.
That's it.
Devoted the whole book in the
Yes.
When you really, I was thinking about this today as I was studying. When you break down the word Proverbs, the word is what? Proverbs. Positive actions. That's what the whole book is trying to tell you to do. How to take positive actions. And it's no coincidence that in the first chapter of the 7th verse, it says, in order for you to take positive actions, you first have to have a fear of God.
Lord, yes.
Because if you don't have a fear of the Lord, then whatever you do, you don't know where you're going. You don't know what it's going to do. You don't know what effect it has.
Yes.
If you have a fear of a God, and you're always keeping your eyes on His commandments and doing His commandments, then whatever you do is guaranteed.
That's it.
Your faith.
This.
We know this because it also says that living with the fear of God is what Christ did. Do you know in Isaiah 11? Turn to Isaiah 11 with me real quick. Isaiah 11. And we're going to go down to verse 2 and 3. And this is talking about Christ. It says, the righteous reign of the branch. And we can start in verse 1. It says, there shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse. This is looking forward to Christ in verse 1. And it says, a branch from his root shall bear fruit. Talking about Jesus. And it says, listen, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him.
Well.
Great. Oh, God's going to be all around you. That's what you need, right? If you're going to be the Messiah. It says the spirit of wisdom and understanding is going to be in him.
Yes.
He's going to be wise. He's going to understand the teachings of God.
Yes.
It says the spirit of counsel and might. He's going to be somebody that he can talk to people and they'll listen to him. He's going to be somebody that gives them good advice, sends them in good direction. He's also going to be somebody of might, someone of character, someone of courage, someone who looks at a crowd of angry mobs and just walk right past them when they're trying to push them off a cliff. The same person who knows that these people can take my life anytime, but I'm still going to do what God has me to do. Why? Because I have this might. But it doesn't stop there.
Well.
It doesn't stop there. It says a spirit of knowledge. And what is the last part?
Fear of the Lord.
And the fear of the Lord.
Well.
This whole time, you've been saying you want to be Christ-like. This whole time, you've been saying, Lord, just let me live my life like you. And God's saying, where's your fear of me?
Well.
You've been saying, God, I go to church every day. God, I read my Bible. But he's saying, that's good. But when you get into your next situation, will you know that I'm in the room with you?
Well.
Because Jesus did. Jesus didn't go meet that woman by the well thinking he was by himself. No, he met that woman at the well knowing that God was looking down at him, knowing that God was judging everything that he was saying, learning to see if it was false. He didn't go to the cross alone. He knew that God was right there looking in the room with him, saying, how are you going to take this? How are you going to do it? Are you going to fulfill every prophecy that I have? Are you going to break it? Don't ever think that you're alone in this world when you've always got a friend in God.
That's it.
You're not alone in the room. It says the fear of God is on this man.
That's
This is Christ.
it.
And it says in verse 3, what does it say?
He will show
God, it said, you've been thinking, I gotta fear God. This is such a dread. This whole time you've been thinking, Lord, I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm not gonna be able to do this now because I know. Once you know, you gotta do better, right? That's what they say, right? You say, oh Lord, I was gonna go to the club tonight. Lord, Lord, you know how it goes down tonight. But now you know if you go there, you ain't going alone. Well, you know that. Lord, I was gonna get into all kind of stuff. I was gonna be freaking it back to Kansas City. But now you know if you bring freaking it, God is gonna But this is the thing, you was looking at it like, man, but what did Christ? You want to be Christ-like? Look what Christ said, verse 3. And his delight shall be in wisdom and understanding. Is that what it says?
Fear of the Lord.
No, it can't be the fear of the Lord. Because that means I gotta watch what I'm doing, reverse some situations and go another way. Please don't let it be the fear of the Lord. Let it be that his delight will be in the counsel and might that God gives him. Is that what it says? Because if that's the case, I can just be as bold as I want to do and do whatever I want to do. But that's not what it says. It says his delight, what made him happy, what made him feel good about himself, was having a healthy fear of the God, knowing that I am not alone. Because the beauty is, not only is God watching you so that he may judge you later, God is watching you so he can protect you, right? Lord, I'd rather have your eyes on me than go through this situation alone. Lord, I'd rather have you walking hand by hand with me instead of going through this situation by myself. Lord, I want you to look down on my life. And even when I fall, Lord, pick me right back up. Even when I stumble, pick me up to be right there, Lord. I want to do your will, Lord. Whatever that may take me, Lord. It may take me into a furnace where I'm dying, but I know just like your angel came with the little boys in Israel, if you your spirit will cover me, and I won't even be scared, Lord. Because you are always with me. Don't you know that when you abide by the fear of God,
Amen.
he's faithful to his promise.
Yes, he is.
He's faithful to his promises. And we can never forget that Christ promised before he left, I will never leave
Nor will I forsake.
nor forsake you.
Yes.
And you know, he could have been saying that probably because he was going to be reunited with the Trinity. And God's always going to be looking at you. So that might be what he meant by that. Like, you know, you never be able to say, me, I'm still going to be looking. I'll be in the room. But it also just means that his spirit should comfort us in difficult times.
Yes.
Because I'm telling you, living in this gear is not as easy. Remember, we talk all the time about how hard it is to live in the gear of faith. But living in the gear of an honest fear of God is so hard because it no longer, before in faith, it allowed us to move past things. But when you live in the fear of God, it allows you to have to stop and redirect around you. Because some things we just can't go into.
That's it.
Some doors aren't meant to be open.
Yes.
Saul was never meant to go against God. And what's crazy is it's easy. It was easy for him. He was already in the mode of battle to do what he had to do. But he stopped short. And let us turn right back to the passage in 1 Samuel. Just so we can close this out. Just so you can see what he lost. 1 Samuel 15. And if we start in verse 26, it says, and Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord.
Well.
You didn't have any fear of God. You didn't worry about God. Maybe you thought just God's a God of love. He just loves everything. But you know what the crazy thing, just real quick. God is a God of love. And I don't want you to ever forget that. Even if this will hurt some people's theology, but even in the issue of hell, it's really a God. It's really an act of God's love for you. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Even the act of hell is an act of God's love for you and for those who reject him. How is it an act of love? Loving someone doesn't mean that you dictate everything that they do, but you love them enough to where you respect the decisions that they make for themselves. When people honestly reject God as their Savior, Christ as their Savior, they're making a decision. And if God hated them and did not respect who they were, he can force them to worship him.
Right.
But he doesn't do that. God's on the agenda of holiness, and he's going to set up a holy kingdom on earth that you and I are going to be a part of. But he says, if you don't want to be a part of this, guess what? I don't hate you, I love you. I don't hate the sin that you've gotten into, but I love you. And because I love you, I respect your decision to not be a part of anything that I've got going here. So he allows those people who reject him to find their place in him.
Well.
Do you understand?
Yes.
That's even an act of love. We look at, we say God is love. That's what it tells us, right? God is love in John. He is love. And even his wrath is an act of love. It comes from a place of love. Why did he tell Saul to kill these people? Not because he distinctly hurt them, but because his picture of redemption for everything depended on his people being holy unto him. It was an act of love that inspired all of this. So when we begin to talk about the fear of God, people say, well, God shouldn't be feared. He's a God of love. He is a God of love. He is a God of love. That's why he's given us a Bible. Well, wouldn't it be hateful for a God to tell you to do things but never tell you how to do them?
Well.
Wouldn't it be hateful for a God to say, you can live any type of life, but at the end I'm going to judge you based on these criteria? This is all love. But because of the love, the same place that miracles come from, the same place that blessings come from, Jesus did magical things, wonderful things, awesome things. He healed people that couldn't be healed. He saved people that couldn't be saved.
Well.
The same place where all of that power comes from is the same place that all of the wrath comes from. And it comes from a place of love. Love is the source of God. So when it says here, when Samuel says to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord.
Well.
You've rejected God's love. When you don't have a healthy fear of God, you are rejecting God's love. He said, you've rejected my love. And because you've rejected my love, he says, I've rejected you from being king over Israel.
Well.
As Samuel turned to go away, Saul seized the skirt of his robe and he took it. And Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you this day, and has given it to a neighbor who is better than you. Now the interesting thing is, David at this point is just a little bit.
Right.
David's not better than Saul. He's not taller than Saul.
Right.
He's not more handsome than Saul. How is he better?
Man after his
Because he
own
has a
Yes. Of the Lord.
the same fear that allows him to walk up to a giant.
Yes.
It says, who are you, you uncircumcised Philistine? It's not that he had, remember what he says? He says, who is this person to go against our God? A lot of people interpret that as an action of faith. No, it's an action of living in the fear of God. It says, who are you to go against my God who is holy than thou? Who are you to go against this God? And it should empower us to make the same power moves in our
That's
own lives.
it.
Amen.
This is what is meant for us.
That's
And this is the life that
it.
he has in Christ. This is what we're called to live on this narrow road trip. This is how we're called to live. Living first in a gear of faith. But then don't forget about the gear of the fear of the Lord.
That's it.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
As we get into our next